Hey, what's going on, guys? I'm Jimmy, and this is One Road. Today I'm going to be tackling a project that's been on my mind for quite a while now. I recently installed dual electric fans into my truck from Flex-A-Lite. I'll link the video below. And now one of my biggest concerns is my actual alternator. This is the stock, well, what was issued from the factory. This is a remanufactured alternator, and it's a 105 amp alternator. So after I installed those Flex-A-Lite fans, everything worked great and works great, but I live in Las Vegas. And the summers here get to be about 115 degrees outside. So I decided I'm not gonna take any chances on that alternator failing. I got in touch with a company called PowerMaster. PowerMaster makes this 140 amp alternator that is a direct replacement for my factory 105 amp. Here's the unit right here. It's a completely 100% brand new alternator. No remanufactured parts. And they even include a proof of performance tag on every single alternator that comes out of their shop. This one was clocked at 104 amps at idle at 14.8 volts. Top end is 159 amps. At cruise, I'm gonna be sitting at 128 amps. That should be plenty to power everything in my truck, including those new dual electric fans. Here's the original 8-gauge lead that came from the back of my alternator to the positive side of the battery, and I'm gonna be replacing it with 4-gauge. On the back of the current alternator, I have this 6-gauge lead going to the positive side of the battery. And what I'm actually going to do is use that for the back of the alternator case to ground that to the negative side of the battery. And then I'll use that 4-gauge I just showed you to go to the positive side. This is all being done on my 1995 GMC Suburban, but it should work for any car just the same. You'll want to make sure your battery is completely disconnected at the negative side before starting any work. All right, so the first order of business is going to be to get this alternator out of there. I need to loosen up the tensioner pulley so I can get the belt off and take this alternator out. I'm gonna be using my 1/2-inch ratchet with a 5/8. This is gonna grab on to the tensioner wheel. I'm gonna pull it over and take the belt off. Now that the belt's off, I need to take the lead off of the back. There's also a small 4-pin connector here on the side. And now we'll focus on taking out the 3 bolts that hold this alternator in place. There's going to be one here, one directly on the other side, and then one back here. All the bolts are now out. I'm going to go ahead and rotate this thing, and there it goes. It's out. There's the old on the left and the new on the right. The new one should just drop right in place of the old one. I now have the alternator installed. We can go ahead and put the clip in. The last bolt is going to be here. Now, this is where I'm going to run this what used to be a positive cable, and I'm gonna now ground the back of this alternator to the negative side of the battery. I'm gonna run my new 4-gauge positive from this post to the positive side of the battery. I need to get one of these lugs onto this end. To do that, I have this tool, which is called a hammer crimper. I'll put a link down in the description below for this thing. It is basically a spring-loaded anvil of sorts, and you load your terminal in the end there in the bottom. This thing holds it in place. Then you take your hammer and just smash it. And here's the final product. Looks beautiful. And that's nice and tight, not going anywhere, absolutely no movement whatsoever. All right, so I've routed this wire. I've also taken this boot off of the other wire and installed it on this wire, and it's just going to bolt directly there. Over here on the battery side of things, I'm going to go ahead and loosen up the positive post, remove the old positive, that's going to be saved for the negative, and then make room for this new positive. Nice and tight. Now that I have the positive side all buttoned up and taken care of, I'm going to move on to this negative side. So as I was saying, this positive cable, which is a 6 gauge, is now going to be grounded to the back of the case. So I'm going to use this back mount, throw the bolt in there, and tie this directly into the negative side of the battery. All right, and the install is done. You can see I got my 4 gauge wire here with the boot on it, coming off the positive side of the alternator, going all the way over to the positive side of the battery. Then, coming off the back of the alternator, I also have a 6 gauge wire, which is tied into the mounting point. So you can see the 6 gauge cable down here, tied right up into the negative side of the battery. That's pretty much it, guys. All I have to do now is start her up and make sure everything works right. All right, so everything's done. This is the moment of truth. This is when I stick this key in the car and hopefully everything turns on and starts up and the battery charges and all that good stuff. So here we go. Oh, I see the lights. There we go. You can see we're sitting at 14 volts there. That looks real good. Exactly what I was looking for. And there's the new alternator running perfectly. All right, the proof is in the pudding, guys. Here we go. I just wanted to show you what happens to my voltmeter when I kick on my dual electric fans, and I'm gonna do that by turning on the air conditioner. Okay, so I cranked on the AC, I heard the fans kick on, and what I'm gonna do is actually the biggest difference you can see is when you stop and you're at idle. So now just let's say that I'm at a stoplight. What I used to see with my old alternator was as I was sitting here and the fans are running, my voltmeter would go all the way, slowly all the way down to the red. And it would just kind of chill at the kind of the beginning of the red. Now, what I'm seeing is pretty much this. I've seen it go a little bit farther down, but it usually stays above that line, which I believe is probably 12 volts. Fans just kicked off. I mean, gosh, guys, what I'm seeing is an amazing difference from the old alternator to the new alternator. So there we go. I wonder if you could hear the fans kick on. Let's see. You can see the volts drop just slightly. Not too much though. This alternator, I can hear it actually a little bit more than I could hear my other one too. It's kind of like a, not in a bad way, but kind of like a higher pitched sound. You can just kind of hear it running. I do feel like for some reason, the fans just kicked off again. I do feel like for some reason the truck almost seems to run better. And I don't know if that's I'm pretty sure it's not a placebo effect. I'm actually feeling the truck kind of run better, have a little bit more pickup, and that might just be due to all of the electrical upgrades I did, including the alternator obviously, but maybe some thicker wires. I cleaned up every single ground I could find. The only ones I haven't yet touched are the braided chassis to motor, I think is what it is. But there you go, guys, that's the proof right there. Thanks for watching. I'm Jimmy with One Road. You've just seen me upgrade my charging system. I couldn't be happier. Thank you, PowerMaster. Make sure to hit that thumbs up, guys, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.